like to thank all of you for being here this afternoon, and I'm very proud to be here. Actually, a little surprised that we have to be doing this at this point, but I'd like to say that we are here to offer a way to unite Minnesota and to bring forth a bill that will take the divisive social issues away from the political arena and give everyone the individual rights that they deserve. And we will be doing that by dropping a bill on the House side to create civil unions in the state of Minnesota. So I am absolutely available here to answer your questions and to also let you know that this is a bipartisan bill. It does have the support on both sides of the aisle, and I am proud of that. I guess as a little bit of background, many of you may know, if you go back to my speech in the House floor 2 years ago, I spoke about getting government out of this arena. I said from the putting the marriage amendment on the Constitution of the state of Minnesota was the wrong thing to do. And I stood up and said that because I felt very strongly that that is not government's role. Government's role is to protect the individual and to make sure that we are giving them the rights and liberties that they deserve. So I stood up and said that. Now we fast forward 2 years down the road, and we have a gay marriage bill proposed. And I sat on the board of Minnesota United, which certainly their group was the prime factor in defeating the marriage amendment. And so as I sat on that board, my message was still clear. It was that I do not believe government's role is to define marriage. So when the gay marriage bill came out and they approached me, and I also had conversations with Representative Clark, as they approached me, they assumed that I would naturally get on the bill. At that point in time, my statement was, that's strange to me, because if you heard my message and you listened to my statement on the House floor, I was completely opposed to government intervention. And now, simply because the conversation has changed, it would be completely hypocritical of me to make the statement that now I agree government should take the role. But that does not stop the injustices and the discriminatory things that are in our statute today. And that's why I bring forth this bill. I bring it forth also at this point in time. I'm a little surprised because I thought actually the Democrats would have done this. I thought civil unions would have been proposed by this time. And I'm afraid because it's not, now we've put all our eggs into one basket proposing a gay marriage bill. If that fails, there's no fallback plan. My commitment to my constituents and to the state of Minnesota was to make sure that I got those individuals their rights. So as I stated, this bill will absolutely give all the benefits and limitations, by the way, of marriage to same-sex couples. And I'm looking forward to doing that. Thank you.
What are your Democratic supporters?
Where are my Democratic supporters now? Right now, there is Kim Norton has signed on to the bill. I certainly won't speak for her, but she has signed on to the bill. I have spoke with numerous Democrats at this point in time that have suggested to me that they appreciate me bringing this forward, and they look forward to reading the bill, and I would expect that more of them would be getting on.
Representative Kelly, the supporters of same-sex marriage say this is discriminatory, this is separate but equal, and that this does not give the same rights as a legal marriage.
Well, I would certainly argue against that. I would say that it is exactly what we need. The issue that has been going on that Minnesota spent $18 million fighting was trying to define the one word. So what this bill does is simply anywhere there is marriage in statute, we insert "and civil union." So to suggest that it does not give them the same rights and benefits to marriage is completely false. In fact, in 2011, a bill was proposed which 28 Democrats were on, including the author of this bill here, including the majority leader in the House. 28 members were on that bill proposing the same civil unions. So I believe it is exactly what we wanted 2 years ago and what we should do today.
Representative, what would you say to skeptics who say that the real motivation for this is to muddy the whole thing up so that not only same-sex marriage doesn't pass, but civil unions might not pass either? How would you say to those? What would you say to those folks?
Well, I would say that I don't mean to keep going back to my statements on the House floor, but all anyone has to do is to go back to that day and listen to my statements on the floor. I believe I gave a pretty impassioned plea to the rest of the members on the House floor that day, is that government needs to stay out, but we absolutely need to correct the injustices that are out there. And that's what this does.
Forgive me, I perhaps didn't state my question very well. What I mean is not so much your motivation, but what are you concerned? Are you concerned possibly, or what would you say to those who would say, hey, this bill in conjunction with the other one is just going to blow the whole thing up, regardless of anyone's motivation?
Well, I would say to them to look at the merits of the bill, and to say if this gets what we want, and this stops the argument and stops the ridiculous amount of money being spent trying to suggest to someone that they have to think the same way I do about the word marriage, is completely wrong. I would say look at the merits of the bill, come along and let's unite Minnesota, and let's move forward. And let's talk about the economy and jobs and everything we're supposed to be doing up here. What this is really trying to do is to end the conversation here. Let's unite us again, and let's all work together to do what we're supposed to be doing.
You say government shouldn't have a role in defining marriage, but doesn't it currently? Would you address that?
Well, I think it does, and I think that's a very good question. Marriage is in statute. So as opposed to trying to pull that word out, we simply entered civil unions right alongside of it. So I don't think you want to fight that battle all at once to suggest that you're trying to take something away from marriage. So realistically speaking, I think it was the best way to go is to insert the civil unions as opposed to pulling out marriage.
So to get government out of it altogether, wouldn't it make more sense to just use civil unions, whether you're talking about same-sex couples or opposite-sex couples, and just get government out of marriage altogether, just call it civil unions for everybody?
Well, I think that's a great question and a great point, and I think eventually, quite frankly, I think that's where we're headed. Well, I think if you look at Europe, that's exactly what happens in Europe. I mean, you've got civil union contracts, and you go get your marriage blessed by the church. So I think eventually we'll get there. But after seeing the last 2 years of the battle we fought and the amount of money that was spent, and it all revolved around one word, and that's marriage. So instead of fighting both battles at once, I think this is somewhat of a baby step to say, okay, let's focus on the individual, focus on getting them the rights that they deserve, and then let's continue the conversation.
Are you looking at this as the least bad of two bad options? Or, for instance, if the marriage bill was defeated, would you still bring this one forward on its own merits? Or is this sort of just a little bit better than having marriage?
Well, for me personally, this is the best bill. This is the best bill there, and the way we should be moving forward. Again, it's completely consistent with my message of take government out of that conversation of trying to tell me what marriage is to me as an individual. The reason we live here, and not to get patriotic on you, but the reason we live in the United States of America is that we can allow an individual to stand up and espouse whatever they believe in. And it could just make our blood boil, and we would be vehemently opposed, but guess what? It's their right to do that. So actually what we're doing is protecting everybody's individual right to proclaim what marriage is to them. But that's not government's role to tell them what it is. Government's role is to protect the individual to be able to do that. So that's what the bill is about, and I believe this is the bill that we should be moving.
Representative, this kind of comes late in the process. Your chances of getting a hearing on this, perhaps not so good. So what's your strategy? Well,
interestingly enough, around here, absolutely. If you're talking about deadlines and things that we've had, our strategy will be to request a hearing in civil law. And although the guideline is passed, it seems to me that we've seen a couple bills come and go by going through the Rules Committee. And we can hear a bill at any time, and I'm going to ask Chairman Lesch to hear the bill and act on it. And once we hear it and are able to vet that, I fully intend to ask it to be moved to the floor.
Representative Kiefer, you had expressed some ambivalence about the marriage bill proper. Does your signing on to this measure indicate that you've decided that you cannot support the gay marriage bill?
Yeah, Thank you for the question. I think right before we even had results from the election, I told people who had their opinions on both sides that this discussion has started. We've asked the voters to decide. We've gotten some feedback. But all along I said, I will address the issues that you're concerned about. There's laws that you're being discriminated against. There's things that are just not working out as a unit in property ownership and health care rights, and I want to address this. So I fully support this bill.
Right. Does this mean you've decided you would not vote for the original marriage equality bill from this session?
I had spoken with Representative Clark, the author of that bill, probably 2 months ago, and told her I could not vote for her bill the way it is right now.
Can we extend that question to the other three of you? Are you all no's on gay marriage if you don't get your way on this bill?
Certainly I can address that. I, as I stated, was on the board of Minnesota United and worked very hard to defeat the amendment. So certainly, as soon as the bill was going to be dropped, they brought the bill to me and requested my signature. And I think that surprised them, and it surprised a lot of people that I said no to that. And I said I could never do that because in my mind, that would be the most hypocritical thing I've ever done. So regardless of my own beliefs and what I believe in marriage, I will not support the gay marriage bill. I will support civil unions.
Could the other two of you address that?
You know, I support Representative Kelly. I feel real strongly about this issue. I've been in the legislature 11 years. I've supported civil unions the entire time. I don't support Representative Clark's bill. This is a solution to the issue. This brings Minnesotans together. It's supported by the vast majority of Minnesotans. Let's get back on track. We brought this state in 2 years from $10 billion worth of deficits to a few $100 million today, which are corrected in the next biennium. We are on track doing great things because what we did the last 2 years. This puts these social issues to bed. Let's get back on the budget. Let's have an honest discussion. Should we be taxing the snot out of hard-working Minnesotans, or should we be concentrating on moving this budget forward and moving this state forward? And let's put the social issues to bed. Let's move on.
First of all, congratulations to you that had Denny McNamara and the word snot in your office pool today for the press conference. Regardless of whether the legislature supports the Kelly Compromise on civil unions, I will not be voting in favor of the gay marriage bill.
How do you define civil unions in this bill? Strictly same-sex couples?
No, civil unions are defined anywhere in statute. Where marriage is in statute, it simply is marriage and civil unions.
But how is civil union defined? You have marriage and you have civil union. How is civil union defined?
The union of two individuals.
So opposite-sex couples then would have the option to, as well as...
That's correct, but what we need to understand is that you do receive the same benefits and limitations. So the limitations of marriage, for example, is you can't marry a family member. You can't marry your uncle. If you leave the contract, the union, you have responsibilities. So that's why putting it in the same statute ensures that they are given the same rights.
Does the bill, following up on what Don said, does the bill contain any stipulations about the manner in which civil unions are formed? I mean, could I form a civil union without a contract with somebody in this room?
No, not without a contract. That's the idea. Is now if you want a civil union, the government is enforcing a contract.
So what is the difference in this bill between marriage and civil union?
Well, the way marriage is defined is between a man and a woman.
But a man and a woman can be in a civil union under this bill.
Correct. It would be rather redundant, but
they would have the same responsibilities as well. Legally, they would be under the same obligations as if they were married under Minnesota law, according to this bill.
Correct.
They would have the same privileges and the same legal obligations and responsibilities.
That's correct.
Just to the point that it would not supersede federal law, and with federal law, there's some things that marriage allows. You can file joint tax return under federal law. Minnesota taxes follow federal taxes, and so this is a Minnesota bill to allow civil unions. It does not supersede the federal tax code as such.
So when the Supreme Court then throws out DOMA, the Minnesota law they would not be covered under the federal law. So Minnesota law would discriminate, wouldn't it?
No, I guess I don't see how Minnesota law would discriminate. I guess to be clear, even if the gay marriage bill passed, it does nothing to the federal law. So that doesn't change anything to federal law.
Well, other states that have this, particularly New Jersey, say it does not end discrimination, particularly in employment and health benefits. Do you know about that? Do you believe that?
That civil unions?
Right. Civil unions actually do not prevent employers from, they won't give you health benefits. There are many other things that you don't have to do with civil unions.
Well, I think our human rights legislation already handles that. But in my conversations with many employers, for example, we have many employers in the state of Minnesota who are very progressive and do this already. They grant domestic partnership benefits. And so in that regard, this is actually a benefit to them because now it defines things. Now it's not a gray issue. It's not ambiguous to someone to come in and say, well, I have a union or I have a domestic partnership. Now they can define it.
To not give people the same rights under a civil union. That would be illegal in Minnesota law?
Well, that's still a bargaining issue.
So you bargain for this, so it's not illegal. It's not in law.
Right.
So it's a different thing than a marriage.
No. It's not any different than marriage. Right now, if you go to work for a corporation or if you have bargaining, you're bargaining for health benefits, for salary, for anything. The statute that defines marriage where marriage is in statute has nothing to do with the benefits you receive at your employers.
But if a company offers health benefits to married couples, under your bill, they would not be allowed to deny health benefits to civil union couples.
Correct. I think that's still a bargaining issue. That is still a bargaining issue because my employer could offer me health benefits without my spouse. They could just give single coverage to me.
If they offer it to married couples, they would have to offer it to civil union couples, correct? Otherwise, by definition, it's not as much legal rights as being married.
Well, in the regard of what is the definition, what we're saying is the state enforces the contract. The contract is a civil union and marriage. So it is still defined that way as far as enforcing a contract.
What if an employer says, I have a moral objection to same-sex unions, whether it's a marriage or a civil union? I do not want to give your partner any benefits. Would that be kosher under your bill? Would you make exceptions for moral conscience?
Well, this would change no part of the law in that regard. Because I think what's interesting as you bring forth, just a question. The marriage bill, for example. All of a sudden we have a gay marriage bill that started having carve-outs to say, okay, the churches, if you want to basically opt out of this, and it surprises me because I thought our intent was to protect the individual because we felt things were discriminatory. So now we're creating a bill, gay marriage, but we're saying, okay, we'll carve out this group, and this group to say it's okay for you to discriminate based on religious issues, right? That's wrong. We should be protecting the individual. We should not be creating a bill that we have to have carve-outs to and allow people to discriminate. That's why this should be a straight civil union contract.
There would be, like a church would have to provide partner benefits?
No, the churches do not have to do that now. We do not change what a church has to do. We do not change what a business has to do.
But Tim, I think a great point to make here is you need to realize now a couple will have a civil union, and if more employers are going to say, domestic partners, that's a real gray area, it's not defined. Here now, if you come forward with a civil union, we're going to have benefits for that. I think there's a great opportunity where we could see many, many more employers say, if you are married or have a civil union. We extend certain benefits, whatever they are. It may be employee insurance, it may be a group plan for your family also, or whatever. I think this moves us forward, not moves us farther away from. And it would clarify for a lot of employers. It's got to be a very hard decision today for them. Do they scrutinize that? Do they, what is actually the arrangement? I think this would be a positive step.
Just so that we're clear here, if an employer says, I want to provide health insurance benefits for married couples, but not for those civil unions, would not be illegal under this bill? Or don't we know? I mean, I'm just trying to be...
Let's see, which one of you is a lawyer?
We have a network engineer, a financial planner, a landscaper, and a business executive. We do not have attorneys.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to defer that question.
Representative, your leadership frequently criticized the majority party for bringing up what they term as divisive issues and not focusing totally on the budget. Is this in any way hypocritical for you to bring this up now?
Well, actually, I didn't think I would have to bring this up. I thought this would have been done months ago. I thought we had a great opportunity with the way leadership is set up right now. The Democrats have the majority in the House, the Senate, and the governor's mansion. I thought this bill would have been brought forward months ago. We could have united Minnesota. We could have had the vote. This would have passed. Absolutely would have passed. But it hasn't been brought up, and that concerns me. I made a promise to my constituents and to a lot of the people in Minnesota that I would fight to get them their individual rights, and that's what we're doing.
If you don't get a committee hearing on this or a separate floor vote, could you see this as an amendment to Representative Clark's bill on the floor?
Certainly.
Representative, help me understand this. What would the difference be between marriage and civil unions if this passed?
I see that there's no difference.
The tax return.
Well, federal issues.
Federal issues, but not state issues.
How much Republican support is there for this bill within your caucus?
Considerable support, I would say.
From rural members as well, or have you checked with them?
Well, I've had conversations with many of my caucus members, and just like any one of us up here, they have an election certificate, and I think we've had great conversations, and I think they are looking at this issue and will be deciding themselves.
How many DFLers, in addition to Representative Norton?
We're rural members.
Oh, sorry, I know.
Pardon me?
How many DFLers, in addition to Representative Norton, will be supporting the bill?
Well, right now, Representative Norton is on the bill, but I've had conversations with probably the same number of Democrat representatives as I've had with Republican representatives.
Any others pledge their support, though?
I'm not going to speak for them.
Have you talked to civil law chairman to get any feel for this will be heard?
No, I haven't directly. I will be putting in a request since I just dropped the bill today. It will be registered on Thursday, and I look forward to making that request to Chair Lesch, and hopefully he hears the bill.
Do you have copies of the bill?
Yes, I believe our media person did have copies here.
I can.
Okay.
As Republicans, how hard is it for you guys to come out in support of unions?
Well, it's not difficult for me, as you've seen, but I won't speak for my.
If you would have asked me in the last 11 years, I've been in favor of it, so it wasn't hard for me.
It's not hard for me. Looking at strictly the data from the election, the marriage amendment passed with only 43% support. I have a question on my online survey about it, and the responses are overwhelmingly in support of some type of compromise so that we can get a solution and move on to the important things in the state.
Do you think this would end the conversation, given that Representative Clark, Senator Dibble say they don't support it? Would people just keep continuing to push for gay marriage if they only got civil unions?
Well, I think this furthers the discussion. I don't look at this as stopping the gay marriage bill by any stretch. I mean, they have the bill, they have the majority, as we've said. This isn't stopping them from having that discussion. But this is furthering the discussion and offering an alternative that I believe will stop and get back to giving these people the rights and freedoms and benefits that they deserve. Yes, go ahead.
Just in closing, if you take a look at the public opinion data on this, We have a choice right now. We can engage in a gay marriage debate, and we're going to have half of Minnesota fighting half of Minnesota on this issue. It'll be incredibly divisive. If you look at the issue of civil unions, the overwhelming majority of Minnesotans support this. Most recent polling shows anywhere from 75 to 79% of Minnesotans are in favor of civil unions. 57% of Republicans are in favor of it. So the choice we have as a legislature now is, are we going to have a divisive fight that pits half of Minnesota against half of Minnesota, or are we going to unite and come together on geographic and partisan lines? My advice to the DFL majority is, I've seen what happens when half of the state fights half of the state, and it ain't pretty, so choose wisely. And let's unite Minnesota and move the state forward. Thank you.
What about a Senate counterpart? Is there going to be a Senate bill dropped, or?
Having the same conversations, and I believe that will be coming shortly.
This yours?
That's mine.
Who's the sponsor, Representative? The Senate?
Second. Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
No. But thank you all for coming, and certainly I will hang around afterwards if you have any other questions. Thank you.